What is going on, Ada Nation? Welcome to DApp Central. I want to thank you guys first and foremost for tuning in for another live stream breaking down all of the latest news and updates going on in Cardano. Now, this wouldn't be a live stream here without my co-host, great friend, and fellow content creator, and that's going to be none other than Josh from Late Game Crypto. Josh, welcome to the stream. How are you doing?
I am doing fantastic. There's lots of exciting stuff happening in the crypto sphere, the Cardano ecosystem. It might not be coming in the form of price action yet, but it's still a great time to be here.
Yeah, thank you again for taking the time to do this. I know you've got your own personal schedule going on, and so I want to respect your time. And I think we're going to keep today's show to a little bit less than an hour. But as you mentioned, there's just so many things that we're going to be chatting a little bit about. So first things first, just want to give a quick shout out to all the viewers here. What is going on? Jillian, thank you for joining us. Tomo, thank you as well. I see Eric over here as well in the comment section. We've got David and many others. Now, let's just quickly jump into the actual schedule for today's show, and then we're going to jump into these segments there. And as always, for the viewers, if you're watching this live, feel free to go ahead and drop your comments in that replay or in that chat box. And for anybody watching the replay, make sure to go ahead and leave your comments down below. The very first topic we're going to jump into is going to be surrounding Coinbase and the fact that they've now filed a motion to dismiss their lawsuit, which was handed down by the SEC. Now, this was a pretty controversial piece of news that dropped about a month or two back. And given the fact that we've seen the recent ruling with XRP, they're now basically trying to ride off of that wave and use some of their rulings to justify as to why they should not be in the hot water that they're currently in. Now, following that, we have a report developed by Messari, which is a third party, basically breaking down all of the on-chain metrics for Cardano quarter over quarter. And they've just released their latest report here, breaking down at least the first two, and I think a portion of this third quarter, in regards to Cardano and just the performance of not only the price, but all of the things that we're worried about on chain, including staking, user adoption, top dApps, etc. So Josh and I are going to be breaking down some of those stats and touching on some of the key things that we've noticed or that stuck out to us individually. After that, we've got some pretty big news surrounding Wanchain, which is a blockchain interoperability platform, which is officially bridged over Bitcoin, Ethereum, USDT, USDC, and their own native token, which is the WAN token, WAN. And we're going to talk about what some of these implications might be with all these new assets coming onto the Cardano network. Now, in closing, there's a brief section, and I basically just want to give you guys an update, and I'm sure that Josh wants to do the same thing as well regarding Cornucopias. So if you guys have not kept up with it, we have Scruffy, who's a content creator, just like we are, breaking down the first ever live stream of the early access for the Cornucopias game. So we're going to touch on that. And we've also got a green light here from Rob Gregg, who's one of the co-founders of Cornucopias, that Josh and I can begin streaming here very, very soon. So stay tuned. Get ready for that Copy content that will be dropping here both on my channel and Josh's channel. And we'll be collaborating to bring you guys the latest updates and news. That said, Josh, how are you feeling? You ready to go ahead and break this show down?
Oh, I'm ready. Let's get started.
All right. Perfect. Let's just go ahead and jump straight into our very first topic. And again, this is going to be surrounding Coinbase and the SEC. Now, I don't think that this particular topic needs any further introduction, but we'll just provide a brief recap. And there's, I think, 2 or 3 articles that I want to touch on. And then, Josh, I'm going to turn it over to you to kind of get your thoughts as to what you think this is going to lead towards and why Coinbase may have made this decision here over the past few days. So this is an article released by CoinDesk, which is available at coindesk.com. I'll try to go ahead and add these links here to the video post show, so stay tuned for those. But it reads here, Coinbase moves to dismiss the SEC's lawsuit alleging crypto falls out of regulators' oversight, that being the SEC. Now, they've got a brief portion here that I want to read, and then there's another article that I also want to jump into. So it reads here, Coinbase, or Coin for short, asked a judge to dismiss the Securities and Exchanges Commission's case against it, alleging that the regulators are now stepping well outside of their jurisdiction in suing the crypto exchange. Keep in mind, for any of you guys that are new to this particular piece of news, that Coinbase was not the only platform that was in hot water. We also saw Binance, which is also in hot water, basically being charged or allegedly charged with the same exact quote unquote crimes or violations. So that's the first piece that I wanted to state there. Now, what's interesting is that we have another piece of information here, which was just released by Watcher Guru. If you guys aren't already following Watcher Guru on Twitter, I'd be highly surprised, but they release a lot of really timely news. And this was one of those pieces that was dropped on yesterday. So it reads here, following their motion to dismiss the regulator's lawsuit, Coinbase had said that they quote unquote expect to win their ongoing legal battle with the US Securities SEC or the Securities and Exchange Commission. Indeed, during an earnings call, which took place on Friday or yesterday on August 4th, Coinbase's chief legal officer, Paul Grewald, discussed the ongoing conflict. Now, this is a statement from Paul himself. With respect to the litigation with the SEC, I want to be very clear. We do think we can win. We expect to win. A very bold statement there, Josh. What are your thoughts? Is this the right course of action? And for them to be so bold, basically putting this out there on an earnings call, they have to be very confident in their decision.
This is a brilliant move. It's so the lawsuit, the request to have it withdrawn itself is for sure a Hail Mary, because it's such a complex case. Like it's not just is it guilty of committing a particular crime? Like, is Coinbase or Binance like responsible for housing a whole host of different securities offerings? And that's kind of the direction that it's going. I think as a couple of weeks ago, there was a judge that came out and made some kind of a legal action that actually disagreed with the XRP versus SEC ruling. So it's not a set and done deal that cryptocurrency as an industry now on secondary market sales is free from the securities categorization. So there's still like a big complicated set of regulatory clarity to have established. So that's where things are getting complicated, is that it's a Hail Mary. They could make it work though. And if they do like actually end up winning the ability to get it withdrawn, I think that they've got a case for it. In the initial complaint, ADA was one of the assets that was listed as something that was the weight for why Coinbase is guilty of securities offerings on secondary market sales. And ADA, I think, is one of the best defenses. So in a way, the SEC may have shot themselves in the foot by listing ADA and other cryptocurrencies that are pretty definitively decentralized utility-based tokens that couldn't fit the criteria of the confines of the Howey test. So yeah, all of that to say that, like, I think that this is a smart move. They could make it work. It is a Hail Mary. Even if it fails, the community, cryptocurrency community, is going to be behind them. There's going to be people that are actively putting even more pressure on the SEC if they end up not moving forward with the withdrawal. So like, it's a win-win either way that it lands for the Coinbase. So that's why I think that this is a pretty brilliant move.
Yeah, and you literally kind of took some of the words out of my mouth there, right? With them kind of stepping on their own feet. So I think it'll be interesting to see two things that come to mind for me is, with this direction, if they are able to get things dismissed, how does that affect Binance? Because Binance, I'm pretty sure, is also watching, right? And maybe they're just waiting on the sideline to see, well, if Coinbase gets their issue dismissed, well, maybe we do the same thing with the same exact legal approach. So that's one thing that I'm looking forward to. Now, you did mention the fact that they had basically handpicked ADA and I believe 13 other cryptos, and they listed those in the initial allegations coming down from the SEC. What was interesting for me to see as well, and this was in the actual dismissal argument, they used ADA as an example. So they basically said Bitcoin is a commodity, Ethereum is a commodity, and then they used two different cryptos, which were in the alleged initial allegation. One was ADA and the other was Dash. And so again, with respect to secondary sales, Coinbase is saying, we understand that, whatever happened with XRP, On the initial sales to private investors, that had its own ruling, but whatever happened with the secondary market sales, those were not deemed as securities, and all we're doing is facilitating secondhand sales. There's no expectation of anything that falls within the Howey test, and so again, to see them using ADA for that specific dismissal argument, I think was huge because again, they had a whole list of them and they chose Dash and ADA. Now, Dash, I'm not too familiar with. I know that had a lot of adoption in the last bull run, not necessarily recently, but obviously here we're very well in tune with what's going on here in Cardano. So just two interesting points that I wanted to note there. Josh, maybe any closing thoughts from you before we kind of keep things rolling? I think this was just a little bit of macro news that we wanted to kind of kick the show off with for today's video.
Yeah, I'm rooting for them. I hope that they pull this off, because if they do, it would be a big win for the crypto industry. I'm not optimistic that that's going to be the outcome of it, but I mean, more power to them, and I think this is the right move for them to make. So.
Yeah, I'll definitely be keeping an eye out on that and providing additional updates on my specific videos or my Cardano Scoop videos moving forward. I think that's going to take us through that very first update. Again, just briefly touching on Cardano and the recent allegations with respect to Coinbase and Binance. We've got some more people jumping into the chat. Again, want to thank you all for showing up. If you guys are appreciating this live stream, as always, make sure to go ahead and tap the like button, share it out, and go ahead and just, interact with that live chat. We've got some additional members here rolling in. We've got Scruffy Live 365. Welcome, Scruffy. How are you? We're actually going to be chatting a little bit about you towards the very end of today's live stream, and the fact that you basically were able to premiere an exclusive piece of content surrounding Cornucopias. Jillian, again, showing some love. My two favorite Cardano content creators. Thank you very much. We've got Lord from the Meld community showing some love to Josh there. I think he's digging your background colors. And then we've got a specific comment here coming from Cardano MM with regards to our recent conversation. So Cardano MM states, the SEC are not going to individually come after each crypto and seeing if they are or not securities, but just as a blanket ban on exchanges that buy and sell them. This is a good move by Coinbase, like Josh said. I think we're both in agreement here. The SEC, I think, is kind of swinging in the dark, and whatever they're able to get to stick, they'll obviously kind of roll and dig a little bit deeper into that particular avenue. But so far, so good. The crypto community's been holding up, and we've won at least one of the biggest cases here that was in the spotlight. So thank you for all of those pieces of input there. Again, thank you all for joining us for this live stream. Let's go ahead and just keep things moving along. Let's see here. We've got a comment from Christopher Fisher. Thoughts on Richard Hart? Josh, I'll give you a little bit of time to maybe let that simmer, and maybe we can swing back around to that towards the end of the stream, given that it's not necessarily a Cardano specific issue, but it is something that does affect the broader crypto community. So Chris, hang on. We will try to see if we can get to that here towards the end of the show. Now, the next thing we're going to jump into is going to be surrounding the official State of Cardano report, which was released yesterday by Messari. If you guys missed this, I did release a fully dedicated video breaking this down with the link to this particular report, but this has so much information here. Again, we're not going to be able to break all of the pieces down, but we're going to try to break down as much of it as we possibly can. So I'm going to kick this off here just with a very brief overview, and then we're going to jump into some of the specific slides down below. But some of the key pieces of insight that really stood out to me include the following: the number of daily dApp transactions for Cardano being up 49% quarter over quarter, the TVL in USD up over 9%, and 198 or almost 200% year to date. Hydra development continuing. One thing they didn't mention here was Mithril, which again was just recently released on the mainnet. And then we've got a bullet point there at the very bottom touching on Milkomeda, Midnight, Wanchain, and additional IoT side chains, which continue to be developed. So those are some of the really high level pieces there. I do have some additional notes that I want to touch on towards the very bottom. I'll let Josh potentially kick this particular segment off, and then I'll follow up here with my additional thoughts surrounding some of the top dApps, and then we're going to review some of the information surrounding staking as well here on Cardano. So Josh, what are your initial thoughts, number one, on these reports? Obviously, it's done by a third party, but then is there anything that potentially stuck out to you when you're reviewing the Messari report?
I appreciate things like this because in the greater crypto space, it's hard to get unbiased information about Cardano one way or the other. So I appreciate this comes from a third party that doesn't represent Cardano in any fashion and is just talking about the data. With the exception of price data, it's all positive information. Things are moving along as planned with Cardano. Things are developing. We're seeing more innovations happening in the space. This is all positive. I don't think that any of this stuff is so overwhelmingly positive that it's immune to like mass market movements and patterns and trends and stuff. But it is like good for the ecosystem generally. We're moving forward. We're developing. This is the kind of thing that we want to be seeing.
That is well said. And one thing I wanted to just point out here was, and it states there at the very top, despite ADA's price decrease, which we know we've fallen from about $3 or so all the way down to where we are right now at about 30 cents, revenue has grown 11% quarter over quarter. So we're really starting to see a compounding effect when it comes to revenue. Now, that's not the only thing that I want to touch on. There's an actual other piece here, which I wanted to highlight as well. So let me see if I can find it. This is going to be surrounding, let's see here. There it is. The first thing I wanted to really touch on was the average daily dApp transactions, which are currently up right now. So if we take a look at this very first line item here, we've got all the activity when it comes to dApps or applications building on Cardano. And if we take a look, obviously, after Q2 of 2022 was really when we saw the bear market kick in. But since then, we've seen a major increase quarter over quarter in terms of dApp transactions, right? With the latest quarter where we're getting data from being Q2 of 2023. So about 2 to 3 months ago, in which we've seen a huge increase compared to any other prior quarter, basically making an all-time high with respect to the data captured within this report. So this is really, I think, some of the key information that a lot of people that are outside the ecosystem may not have. They continue to call Cardano a ghost chain, but things like this are really what intrigue me and what keep me going on here within this ecosystem. So that was just one of the first things I wanted to touch on. Another cool piece to take a look at here is going to be the stablecoin line item down here. Now, granted, we didn't have stablecoins back in Q2 of 2022. We also didn't have stablecoins back in Q3. However, towards the end of the year of 2022 is when we saw Indigo come online and they launched IUSD. Now, right behind them in the beginning of February, we also saw JED come online. And so with only IUSD in the market, we had a total value of $2.8 million on the network here in terms of stablecoin value. And that increased all the way up to $10 million worth of stablecoins. And then in this last quarter alone, $13 million in stablecoin value. So again, quarter over quarter, we're seeing these numbers continue to increase. These are not things that can be argued. These are hardcore cold facts. And again, this is what I like because there's no objectiveness to this. There's no opinions. It's really just that, just looking at the data. And a lot of times, whenever we're on crypto Twitter, on YouTube, there's people that might not necessarily be within Cardano that are spewing their opinions. And a lot of that is missing these core facts. So I always urge people to do their own due diligence. And this is a part of my due diligence. And this is what gives me so much confidence here in the Cardano community. Now, to add to this, there's also another line item that I want to take a look at, and that's going to be the TVL in terms of ADA. So if we take a look here in Q2 of 2022, that was at 261 million. That did drop off because, again, we saw the bear market and a lot of liquidity leaving. But since then, we've had quarter over quarter growth, which we saw 206 million in Q4 of 2022, Q1 of 2023, 366 million. And then look at this big jump between Q1 and Q2 with us going to what I think in about almost $200 million worth in terms of ADA being added to our TVL. So huge numbers here. I can't wait to see exactly what we see as a part of Q3. I know we just broke over 600 million. So even between, when this report was released and now, or excuse me, when the data was gathered for this report was released and now, we've had an additional $50 million worth of ADA coming into the ecosystem. So just 3 line items there. I know, Josh, that's probably a lot of numbers to digest, but what are your initial thoughts here with respect to some of this data?
I have 2 perspectives on it. One, it's very exciting. I mean, like we're starting to see a turnaround of there was not very many functional dApps around like the earlier part of last year and behind that. And as that was happening, the market was decreasing. So it's really exciting to see things kind of turn around to where numbers are kind of gradually increasing. But my other perspective on this is that in the grand scheme of things, if you like kind of zoom out of what this looks like compared to what we might be seeing in the next like year to 2 years to 5 years, this right here is just like it's so small. It's very minimal. It's practically like sideways movement stability at this point in time. And I think that we're looking at the bottom. I don't think that this activity is going to start decreasing in any way, shape, or form, because we're moving forward. There's new things to do, new protocols to interact with. It's an exciting time where we're at right now. But it's so tiny to me. It's so small.
Yeah, and I think as content creators too, because we're providing updates on a lot of these protocols, we have to do our research. And I couldn't agree with you more that like this is just the beginning. And so I'm excited for what is going to be built, what has already been built, and what future ideas are going to be coming into this ecosystem. Now, we've just kind of touched on some of like the higher level data, again, focusing on Cardano specifically, but there's some additional information that I want to jump into surrounding the actual dApps on Cardano. As many of you know, we have JPEG.store, which is arguably one of the biggest marketplaces on Cardano. And we've also got MinSwap, which is one of the biggest DEXs right now to allow or to facilitate swapping of tokens on the network. Now, this is interesting here that MinSwap dethroned JPEG.store as the most active dApp in Q2. Maybe that's not surprising to you, Josh, but it is somewhat surprising to me because I think that both of those niches, right, DEXs and marketplaces, have a lot of user activity. Again, you need Cardano native tokens, and for you to get an entry or an exit into a Cardano native token, you have to use a DEX. Now, with respect to MinSwap, I think they have a lot more competition than JPEG.store. Again, I think JPEG.store has over like 95% of the market share, whereas MinSwap has, I think, somewhere around 30 to 40%. But to see MinSwap still dethroning JPEG.store was a really huge piece of insight for me there. So again, just something that I noticed when going through the report. But what are your thoughts? What do you think about something like this? Is this the norm? Could we potentially see something or somebody coming behind MinSwap and potentially dethroning them in terms of the most active dApp on the network?
Oh yeah, absolutely. We're so early in the ecosystem that like anything can happen. I think that this switch is really as a result of NFTs getting a heck of a lot less exciting. So they're seeing less volume, and that's kind of going in the opposite direction. And then on the other side of things, like dApps and protocols and Cardano native tokens are getting more exciting because people are starting to discover that they exist. And we're also seeing more functionality and more moving forward in development and things that people can do. And in NFTs on Cardano just haven't seen that proliferation of function like Cardano native tokens are seeing right now. So yeah, this will change. I think we'll see NFTs get more exciting at some point as the market gets more exciting. But yeah, this is kind of what I expected to see.
Well said and agreed. Moving into the next piece of data, we're going to talk a little bit about Cardano staking. So, with respect to stake pools, we can see that we have stayed at a relatively similar number for over the past 4 or 5 quarters. So, I'm not really going to dive too much deeper into that. But I think what that states to me is that we're just seeing sustained support from the SPOs, or basically the backbone here for the Cardano network, right? If you guys aren't already delegating your ADA, definitely go ahead and do so. I do run my own stake pool, so I'll go ahead and just shout it out here, but that's the dApp Central Stake Pool. Consider delegating to that if you guys would like to support me and some of the other content creators here within the channel. Now, with respect to the stake pools that have minted at least a single block, we have seen that number rise steadily up until this very last quarter, where we did see that drop off by just a little bit. But if we compare that to Q2 of 2022, again, not really groundbreaking numbers, but I think what it shows to me is that we're just seeing sustained action, because one thing to keep in mind is that we are getting stake pools that are coming in, and we're also getting stake pools that are closing down, right? For example, we saw Genius Yield, who had 4 stake pools, shut down 3 of them. We saw the Crown stake pool shut down. We saw other content creators who have stake pools shut theirs down. But as we're seeing people going offline, we're also seeing just as many new operators coming on the network. So that's what those two kind of pieces of information scream to me. Now, with respect to delegators, if we take a look at that, that's the third line item here. We started off Q2 with, I think, here around 1.2 million delegators. And if you compare that to now, we've seen quarter over quarter growth, with now us inching towards 1.3 million delegators. So again, stats like this are what we want to see as new people come onto the network. We want to see them go ahead and delegate their ADA. Now, as a mini side tangent here, I had a viewer who was viewing, I think from, I want to say it was from South America. I don't want to state a specific country because I might get it wrong, but anyway, this particular viewer made a really interesting comment, and it was surrounding staking to stake pools automatically. In one of my prior videos, which I released about 4 or 5 days ago, I talked about the fact that there was over 45 million ADA currently delegated to retired stake pools. So these are basically stake pools that are no longer operating, they're no longer minting blocks, and they're no longer supporting the Cardano network. And what this viewer mentioned was that we should probably have some sort of way to, number one, notify members that are staked to a stake pool that has retired. But then number two, maybe have some sort of protocol in place to automatically move that stake to active stake operators. Again, doing a little bit of math there, I just used the top 5 pools, but when I added the total amount of stake gathered within those top 5 retired pools, I believe they would have been earning altogether around 5,000 ADA every epoch or every 5 days. Now, because they're staked to pools that are retired, that's 5,000 ADA that's basically being missed out on in terms of rewards, right? So imagine that going to brand new operators that are struggling every single day asking for delegations, just like myself. I don't think I've made it anywhere to being a top pool within the network, but I'm thankful for the delegators I have. Now, granted, I could always use more, but that was just a really interesting comment that I received there with respect to how staking should work and how it could potentially work. And again, I think with SIP 1694, this would be a really interesting topic to bring up to the general Cardano community. If we could have some way to move some of these assets from retired stake pools over into more active stake pools. So what are your thoughts with respect to that, or what we just saw here with some of these pieces of information about staking and staking on Cardano?
Yeah, as far as the stats go and the consistency that we're seeing over the last year, I think that this is symptomatic of Cardano's liquid staking mechanism, which is still the best in the industry. There's not a single protocol that I've seen that matches up to this. When ADA is being traded back and forth between different wallets, those wallets are already delegated to another stake pool, and the delegation is kind of just like moving around from pool to pool. So I think that's like where the consistency is coming from. It's Cardano's innovation that's like really ahead of the industry. As far as solutions to what we could do with ADA that is delegated to close down stake pools, it gets tricky, I think, when you are trying to develop things on a principled, decentralized basis, and there's built-in like automatic changes to the protocol that are not necessarily done with people's consent. So that kind of concerns me. Is even if they're unaware, even if they don't know that the pool that they've delegated to has been closed down, I don't think that it would be right or ethical, consistent with decentralized principles, to move it to another stake pool that they didn't choose. And depending on like the regulatory framework and things of the future of crypto, that could potentially cause some problems as well. So I would like to see maybe something a little bit more in the realm of a stake pool operator having the ability, when they close down a stake pool, to have their delegators automatically be sent to a designated stake pool. Because when people choose to delegate to a stake pool operator, they're working with and kind of trusting a stake pool operator to do that work for them. So when they make that delegation, there's kind of an agreement that is made that this person is going to be the one that's going to take care of me. They're going to be the one to handle my delegation responsibly to help support the network. And if they choose to no longer do that, they're responsible for designating, the new responsible party for that. I think that would be a little bit more consistent with a decentralized environment. I would like to see something like that.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point that you made there, and that kind of sparked an idea in my head. So by nature, I do agree with the statement that you made surrounding, people's stake being moved without their consent. I do think that, we definitely want to make sure that people are signing for these transactions and that we're not just doing things without their knowledge. So I agree with that. However, one thing that I just thought of, which I think would be interesting to see if the community's on board or maybe not with it. But imagine when you're delegating to a stake pool, if you could have some sort of backup option, right? Where if stake pool number one shuts down, then there's always the ability to then automatically have that be moved to another stake pool. Now, you would sign some sort of transaction when you're delegating to the first stake pool and basically say, if that particular stake pool, which is my primary, goes down, then automatically move my stake over to the next stake pool, which I've already consented for when I was delegating to the first one. So something like that could potentially mitigate that concern that you had, while also giving people the fail safe or that second option. Now, if both of them retire, then obviously that's a whole nother can of worms, right? But at least it gives a little bit of some preventative measure with respect to what we're seeing right now. Now, to kind of keep the conversation going with respect to staking, we have this chart here again within the report, which provides so much good information. I mean, I've only taken a look at about half of it, and I'm still digesting it, but I've had so many thoughts. Anyway, it states here that active stake is now at a yearly low. Now, there's two ways that I see this. Actually, one way that I see this, and one way that I think things are going. But normally, because we're seeing more wallets delegating, you would think that we would have a higher active stake. However, it seems like even though there's more wallets delegating, the amount of ADA being delegated is dropping off. So at the peak, we had about 72 to 73% of the ADA on the network being staked. And that has now dropped to an all time low of about 62%. And then we had that slight rebound here over the course of the past 2 or so months. Now, what I've been hearing and what I'm starting to believe is that because we had this huge run with respect to meme coins in DeFi, that a lot of people basically took their ADA from stake pools and begin to invest that in DeFi. For example, we saw MusiSwap in their governance token have a lot of really huge price appreciation. We also saw LenFi, which was previously known as ADA, have a lot of price appreciation. And then we also even had recent platforms launch their tokens. For example, OPT or the option flow token. And then we also just had LiFi or Linkage Finance also have their token launch. Now, with the last two token launches, we saw a huge sell off with the entire CNT market. And then as soon as those sales completed, we saw a lot of ADA flowing back in, or at least some green candles coming into some of those assets that sold off prior to those token sales. So interesting metric here to note again, even though we have more wallets delegating, we're still seeing a decrease in ADA stake. But for me, I think a lot of that ADA is now going towards DeFi. Do you have any thoughts on this before we wrap up this particular portion of the segment here, Josh?
I do not. I think that's an interesting phenomenon that we're seeing, and I don't know what's happening with that, but I'd be interested to see a little bit more explanation. Some blockchain analyst out there taking a look at what is causing that. But yeah, interesting.
Cool, cool. So I think that is going to wrap it up there for that particular portion of this video. Let's go ahead and just take a little bit of feedback here from the community. So I think this is with respect to what we are just talking about the stake pools. This is coming in from Clover Notes. The community could vote on such entities to be put in place. Just an idea. He did leave another comment right before that. And it states here that we should have SPOs that shut down their stake pools hand over their keys to an entity that agrees to turn it into a 100% charity pool, as long as the minimum rewards cover the pool running costs. That's actually not a bad idea. I think number one, it keeps the ADA staked. And then number two, you're doing that for a charitable cause. So I am all for that, Clover. Thank you for joining us here for this live stream. And thank you for that nice piece of input there. We've also got an additional comment from Cardano MM. I think we need to be alerted when a stake pool has shut down as it's not fair on the stakeholder. That is true. However, MM, I do also want to state that we should always be in charge of our funds. I think that's one of the key things about this particular network, but anything that can be done to, I think, lessen that burden would definitely be welcomed. Now, this actually is going to take me into something that was recently mentioned, and I did cover this very briefly in my latest Cardano video. This was a little bit of a teaser released by IMX surrounding an email platform being built into wallets. So imagine, being able to get some sort of transaction on the network sent directly to your Nami wallet, your Yoroi wallet, your Eternal wallet, stating, hey, this pool that you've been delegated to has been shut down or is going to be shutting down over the course of the next 2 or 3 days. So that was just something that was teased. I know they just created a brand new page on Twitter. I'll be providing additional updates surrounding that here in my future videos. Now, I think we have some other comments. Let's see here. This is coming in from Kopi Bohr. I think this was surrounding our review of MintSwap kind of taking over with respect to the action on Cardano and being the most traded or used app. And it says here, as soon as pool farming or single asset farming starts, MintSwap will lower in popularity versus Axo. Axo's been one that I'm sure that Josh and I have definitely been watching it for quite a bit of time. They did mention an upcoming testnet. They've been super quiet. So hopefully we get some more news and information surrounding them here. But I think they're really going with like a super stealthy approach. Whether or not that's going to work out for them has yet to be seen, but they've been flying under the radar for quite a bit of time. So Kopi Bohr, we'll have to see if that statement is true in the next few months as they release their product. Okay, let's move along here. We're going to jump into our last major topic before we jump into Cornucopias and then take some questions and comments from the community. So this next piece of information is going to be surrounding Wanchain, and they're a decentralized blockchain interoperability platform. Now, Wanchain has been in the Cardano spotlight, given the fact that they have now bridged Bitcoin, Ethereum, USDT, and USDC over into Cardano. Now, this opens up a ton of brand new opportunities within Cardano and any of these other chains where Wanchain might be bridging to. So as we can see here, we have 1 Bitcoin being sent over. We've got a very minor Bitcoin transaction fee, as well as a very minor bridging fee, which obviously goes back over to Wanchain for providing the service. And then we have 1 Bitcoin being received on the Cardano network. So a huge milestone here. Congratulations to all parties involved. Josh, let me maybe kind of pitch this over to you first. What are your thoughts about this? What are the implications? Do you see maybe any downside to having additional bridge assets coming into Cardano?
No downside. This can only be a good thing. The thing is that the whole industry of bridging right now, I feel like is kind of very Wild West like. There's a whole lot of people that are trying to enter that market to provide that solution. There isn't a lot of functionality on the other end of that bridge, which is like really the kind of interoperability that we want to be seeing. In like usually it's just like, yeah, this is the kind of stuff that we expect to be seen. But Wanchain is actually an exciting one because they have expanded into I want to say like 30 different blockchains, and they have a flawless record as far as on-chain security. They have not been hacked in all of this time of them developing. I don't know how long they've been live, but so that's really positive. The thing that this is just the first step in, I think, a very long list of steps that need to happen in order to really see a sort of seamless interoperability. The thing with bridging right now is that the only function that exists, the only benefit that it brings is to take advantage of arbitrage opportunities on other chains if there are comparable assets that you can trade with. You trade Bitcoin over to the Cardano network and you have one BTC or WBTC or whatever they call it on the Cardano blockchain. And if that doesn't have any function to it, then all you can really do is maybe swap it for another on-chain Bitcoin derivative. So maybe you swap one BTC for Anita BTC. And with that amount of transactions that you have to go in order to get to what your end goal is, it can get pretty capital inefficient pretty quick. So this is the first step of many that I think we need to be seeing in order to see real interoperability. And that's the kind of thing that I'm really looking forward to. It's exciting to see those first steps happen, but it is just the first steps, and there's a lot more that need to happen.
Yeah, I think the point that you raise is extremely well put together. One thing that always comes to mind when we're talking about bridge assets is who is going to be supporting these bridge assets, right? So, for example, with Cardano native tokens, right, we normally see ADA being integrated into whatever platform, whether it's a DeFi platform, etc. And I'll just use LenFi as an example here. But we're seeing proposals for the Iagon token. We're seeing proposals to add SNEC. We're seeing proposals to add, all these other tokens that originated from Cardano. Now, because we're getting things coming in from the outside that are wrapped, these platforms also have to do the same process and do their due diligence to see, okay, is it worth us holding bridge assets? Because I do want to be fair, there are some risks with respect to bridge assets because they're not native to that chain. So just like with everything else in crypto, right? Just even being in crypto is risky in itself, but holding bridge assets does present some risks. Again, I'm not an expert with this, particular kind of architecture, but I do know that if you're holding a wrapped asset and if the underlying locked asset is no longer there, then you've kind of got, some trouble. So that I think is my first kind of question to the general community. It's like, who is going to be accepting this? Because you can bring as many wrap tokens as you want to Cardano, but if there's no DeFi protocols accepting them, there's no DEXs trading them, then what is the point, right? So that is number one. Number two is going to be surrounding liquidity. So, to that end, do we start to see Bitcoin specific pools pop up for the Bitcoin version or for the Wanchain version of Bitcoin? Do we see liquidity pools pop up for the, Wanchain versions of USDT, etc.? And then also, how does this impact other existing Cardano assets? For example, like you mentioned, Aneta BTC, they're also bringing an ORAP version of Bitcoin on Cardano. Does, the Wanchain version eat into some of their market share? And then for some of these other assets, for example, like USDT and USDC, how does that impact JED? And how does that impact IUSD? Does that bring more liquidity in general? Does it maybe bring a bigger use case for some of these stable swap platforms that we're hearing about? I know MintSwap is trying to build out their own stable swap, and we're now also seeing stable swap available already on Wing Riders. But because we only have two stable coins, there's not really a huge use case for that. But if we're now getting additional stable coins, does liquidity flow into them, and then now there's an actual use for that? There's just, I think, so many questions with respect to this, but I think it's a good first step to at least have these assets here on the network. So the very last thing I wanted to just kind of wrap up here was that these assets are already live on Cardano. Right before Josh and I actually hit the go live button here, I noticed that the Bitcoin amount, which I think was 100,000, is now at 77,000. So they've already moved some of these assets around. I'm not sure where they're going to be going. I'll definitely be keeping an eye out on this particular wallet, but it is interesting to see that we're seeing a lot. And these aren't small quantities. I mean, take a look at that. 1 million ETH, 11 million USDC or $11 million, 8 or 9 million USDT, and then 10 million of the WAN token. So I know that was a lot, Josh. What are your thoughts? What are you thinking?
Like I said, like it can only be a good thing. It's the first of many steps that need to happen. In most cases, I'm not really participating in a whole lot of bridging solutions unless there is function that is built into the other end of the bridge, or if the bridge is capital efficient in the bridging solution back the other way. So yeah, I'm watching. Just paying attention to what's happening. But I'm not jumping on the boat quite yet. I don't think that this is the a huge opportunity to take advantage of quite yet.
Let's take some quick comments here. I'm watching the chat go off here. There's been a lot of chatter surrounding our last topic, which was surrounding the stake pool. So we'll come to that here after this very last topic, where we're just doing a little bit more general Q&A. But an interesting comment here from David, aka Studio Malacca. He states, there's nothing that Bitcoin does that can't be done with a CNT or Cardano native token, and the latter will be way faster and much more eco-friendly. The BTC dominance is proof that we are in the very early stage in this particular space. I agree. The Bitcoin dominance has, at least year over year, been dropping, declining, as more people put their funds in exposure or get exposure to altcoins, which include Cardano, right? Now, hopefully we get to the point where one day Cardano isn't considered an altcoin. But it is an interesting thing to keep in mind, David, is that Bitcoin, even though the dominance is falling, it is still king. When you take a look at institutional adoption, that's all being done through Bitcoin. Ethereum, I think, has runner up, which is great. But we have to, I think, in some way, shape, or form, at least acknowledge Bitcoin and the amount of liquidity that is stored right now in Bitcoin. I know that there was a chart released by Aneta BTC, and the chart basically broke down that, like, if we can get, I think it was like 1 or 2% of the TVL with the wrapped Bitcoin on Ethereum, that would equate to somewhere around like $300 to $400 million. Again, don't quote me on that. I have to go back and look at those numbers. Obviously, the prices of things have changed since then, but it was basically almost doubling the entire TVL of Cardano if we're just able to get 1 or 2% of the TVL for wrapped Bitcoin on Ethereum. So again, it really shows that even though the dominance is falling, the value locked in Bitcoin cannot be denied. So David, maybe we see that, shift happen over the course of the next 5-10 years. But I think for now, we do have to at least acknowledge the fact that Bitcoin is needed, and there's a lot of liquidity that could come into Cardano through some of these bridged assets. Josh, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I mean, like, I agree. I think that Bitcoin will always be around. But as the industry of crypto grows and we see a greater evolution of the space, I do think that it's natural that we see a drop in Bitcoin dominance. That doesn't mean that Bitcoin itself is going to depreciate in value, but it's just symptomatic of the whole space growing. So that's my expectation.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Now, we are going to be touching a little bit on Cornucopias, and I have to give a shout out here to Scruffy Gaming. And he was in the chat. I'm not sure if you're still here, Scruffy, but Scruffy broke an interesting piece of content late yesterday. So this was the early access game testing being done with Rob Gregg, as well as David, who I believe is their lead developer. Now, I'm not sure if it's going to actually play here, and I may just have to pause it just for copyright sakes and just to make sure that we're careful here. But you guys go ahead and check this out. This, again, was done by Scruffy. He live streamed this yesterday, and this was the very first glimpse that we got to see of the Cornucopias game. Now, they have been rolling this out to OGs within their Discord, including myself and Josh, and we have both now been able to actually jump into their European server as well as their US server to play around and get a first glimpse and a first taste of what is coming for the Cornucopias metaverse. Now, I say all of that to say that we do have a green light to begin sharing content, not now, but within the next 3 to 4 days. So stay tuned. If you guys aren't already subscribed to Josh's channel, make sure to go ahead and do that. If you guys are here, I would hope that you guys are already subscribed. If not, consider subscribing. But Josh, what is your plan when you're now able to actually begin streaming Cornucopias, which is something that so many of us have been itching to do, and we're now finally getting to the point where we can finally do that?
I don't have a singular answer to that question because I've been thinking about it for over a year now, and I have so many ideas. There's a ton of stuff that I want to do right now. As the like very MVP version of the test phase of Cornucopias, there's very little functionality. You can run with your character, or you can walk with your character. You can jump, and you can look around what they have built so far. So it's like very minimum of what we're able to do. And just based on that, I have some ideas of different ways to entertain people and create interesting content around that. So yeah, look forward to that. I'm really looking forward to putting out some stuff. It's so exciting. I've had access now for 3 or 4 days or something, and I've probably clocked a good like 10 to 14 hours just looking around of everything that it was. What they have right now is bigger than what I thought that it was going to be.
Yeah, it is a lot to see, and that was my first initial reaction, was just how big of an environment it was. And they also have, and I just realized this earlier today, almost kind of like a treasure hunt mini game going on, right? Where you're able to explore the platform, you're able to gain XP as you explore different pieces of the actual metaverse. So I'll be doing, a little bit of playing, hopefully with you, Josh, here after this stream. But I'm excited to finally be able to share some of this content with the community, to be able to have a new form of content, right? Where maybe it's not so fact based like my current content is, where I can just kind of relax a little bit and just play the game with the community and kind of interact with them. And hopefully the community who's also watching will be able to join us along with that, right? And being able to play the Cornucopias game, especially as this rolls out to the more general and broader public. So I think that is going to do it there. Again, wanted to shout out Scruffy, want to shout out Rob and the entire Cornucopias team for what they continue to build and develop here on the network. Again, if you guys have not already checked out that live stream by Scruffy and Rob and David, definitely go ahead and do that. It's about an hour long. So a lot of really interesting things to see there, and a lot of different portions of content that they haven't actually shared within their Kopi Cafe. So again, really clean, really new information here coming from the Cornucopias game. I think that's going to bring us to a close here, Josh. What we're going to do is just go ahead and just kind of wrap this up by taking some community questions. As I mentioned earlier, seemed like a lot of the staking questions gathered a lot of, our initial staking comments gathered a lot of additional follow-up. So let's kind of just jump into that. There is one thing I want to touch on very briefly before I do jump into the staking, though. And this is a comment coming in from Crawfish. Crawfish, thank you for your support. I see you all the time within the comments. BTC dominance has been rising this year. That is true. BTC tends to lead, especially when we have retracements in the positive direction, right? We tend to see that a lot of the market flow or a lot of the inflow comes into Bitcoin. Once we see Bitcoin pump, we then see that trickle out into Ethereum, and then from Ethereum, then into large cap altcoins, which include ADA. And then we have like some of the really riskier tokens have an altcoin run after Bitcoin, and all these other platforms have had their run. So I do agree with you there, Crawfish. My personal comment earlier with respect to Bitcoin decreasing was, I think, on a much bigger scale. If you take a look at, the Bitcoin dominance in every single bull run, or after every single bull run, you'll notice that we are hitting lower lows. With the latest bull run, I think bringing the Bitcoin dominance all the way down to about 30%. So again, I do agree with you here. I think if we're looking at things long term, over the last 10 years, we are seeing the trend that Bitcoin dominance is decreasing. However, whenever we do have some of these bear markets, we tend to see Bitcoin dominance increasing as more and more people begin to feel a lot more safer by investing in Bitcoin first. So I did want to touch on that. We have some other comments here, again, touching on the staking. And this is coming in from Lord. With all due respect, I'd say that an SPO, or if an SPO wants to stop running their business, that they can then hand over their keys and their pool over to Catalyst Fund, and the Treasury can then hire entities like Maestro to oversee the community pools. Josh, what do you think about something like that?
Yeah, I mean, I would be on board with that. It does seem like kind of a more short-term solution because it's not executed by the protocol. You require a person, a human being, to take action in order to facilitate that. And I think the real like long-term solutions that we see are like protocol safety mechanisms to be able to execute things whenever humans can't be relied on. I think that's the solution that we're looking for long term. But I would be totally on board with something like this.
Yeah, I agree. I think anything or any idea that just has to do with the fact that we can keep these funds being active, I am totally open to hearing. So thank you for that amazing suggestion there, Lord. We've got another comment, very similar topic. Again, this is coming in from Jay Cole about the staking. Great informative content produced at lightning pace. Thank you, Cole. people should be checking their stake pool regularly, no matter what SIPs are adopted to address the issue of stake pool shutdowns. And this kind of ties a little bit back to what I was mentioning to Cardano MM. I do agree that some people should be doing that, but also keep in mind that like as the bear market comes along, a lot of especially newcomers, right, they just kind of step away from the space. So while I do agree with your point, it is valid. I think that we have to at least account for some of those people that may not be active, right? Hopefully they aren't the majority, but they still do, I think, need to be accounted for. We've got another comment from Eric Threadgill. Thank you as always, Eric, for your support here on the channel. I like Fareed's idea of having a backup pool and Josh's idea of having the pool operator restake to a new pool. I would trust Dap Central, which I assume he's just referring to me, to move to move his funds if I were to shut down. I don't plan on shutting down, Eric, anytime soon. Your funds are safe. If that were to be the case, I would definitely do my due diligence to go ahead and let you guys know as that time would come. Now, I do agree here with David, or David, I should say, that a decentralized alternative to Gmail would be something that we could use to send out alerts and to keep the community aware as to what's going on with some of these stake pools. So again, interesting topic that I wanted to briefly touch on there. Seemed like that that piece of the video here for today did get a lot of attention and a lot of engagement from the community. I think we're going to be getting closer towards the end of this video. We're going to try to shut this down here. So if you guys have any last minute comments, we will go ahead and take them before we wrap up. We did promise Christopher here to answer his questions surrounding Richard Hart. What are your thoughts, Josh?
I am disappointed that somebody like this represents the industry of crypto. He in a lot of ways is I think the antithesis of what it is that we're trying to do here. He made it very much all about the money, and it's not all about the money. It's about what we can do with the money and the control that we have over our money, and what capabilities and functionalities and freedoms that is enabled by our money. Yeah, Richard Hart was very much about turning your crypto into more US dollars, and that's really not a safe stance to stand on. That would be my criticism. I'm not on board with I think that the recent trouble that he's looking into with Hex and other projects that he's involved in, I think that they're in real trouble because the way that it was marketed seems very much profit driven, and that kind of makes it pretty more aligned with the confines of the Howey test. So good luck to him, but I'm not on your team, brother, Mr. Richard Hart.
Yeah, he's definitely going to need it. I think he's implicated himself with a lot of different things. And this is the beauty of blockchain. They were able to basically track a lot of the funding wallets tied to Hex and its initial sales. And they're basically able to see that a lot of the funds were rehypothecated and used to pump up, number one, the Hex price. And then number two, that some of that was actually used to purchase luxury goods. So not a good look by any means there. He's been extremely flashy. And I think that's probably why he was targeted right away. A lot of these people I know outside of even Cardano had basically said stay away stay as far away, excuse me, as you can from Hex and what he's building. And I will say, to his credit, he's extremely smart. I just wish that he would have maybe put that kind of talent towards doing something the right way. I'm not sure if you've listened to him speak, but very intelligent person, very articulate, and he definitely knows what he's been doing. He's been in Bitcoin since I want to say like 2010, 2011. So just our thoughts there, Christopher, not financial advice. I'm not sure if you're a part of the Hex community or if you're a Hexican. If you are, unfortunate time, because again, a lot of people did stake their assets for like 5 to 10 years. And right after the SEC news came out about him being sued, we saw like a 40% price dip. And a lot of these people that were investing in Hex were basically putting in their last dollars, believing in a platform like this. So unfortunate to see a community taken advantage of. And, this is why we always advocate to do your own research and to do your own due diligence here in this space. We'll take a few more questions and then we're going to close this down here. We are at the hour mark. We've got a piece of information coming in from Dave McCraw. What are your thoughts on Genius Yield's DEX? Is it progressing well? I can definitely take this one, Dave, excuse me. We are going to be seeing the launch of the Genius Yield DEX on August 14th or 15th. This has been confirmed by the team. So it's definitely been progressing well. They are also going to be advertising a Project Catalyst proposal for options trading on their decks as well. So if you've been keeping up with some of my videos, which I believe you do, we have options flow coming in from Uniswap, which is going to be an options platform as well. But just like we've seen the race for the dexes, I think we're going to see a race for options protocols coming on Cardano. So keep an eye out for that. They have reached out to some of their core members, some of their Genius OGs, and they're now going to be setting up some early access for their Genius Yield deck. So because they are coming to testnet, again, this gives me confidence that whatever they're building is going to be coming very soon. And then if you're also maybe looking for a gauge of confidence, right, take a look at Genius X. They are also partnering up, and a lot of the team for Genius Yield is a part of the team for Genius X, and they have had a few public token sales on their platform as well. So I believe in the Genius team. They've definitely put their money where their mouth is. And I've also had Marvin Burton, who's a part of the Genius team, also on my channel for interviews as well. So hopefully that answers your question. Josh, anything maybe that you want to touch on when it comes to Genius X?
I don't have a lot of thoughts on Genius X. I haven't followed it closely enough, but a lot of people that I respect pretty deeply, including yourself, are pretty plugged in with the project. So I have a positive presumption about it.
Awesome. Awesome. Confirmation here from Christopher. He is not a Hexican. Glad to hear that. And yeah, I mean, this is exactly what we said earlier. While he does appear to be a very smart person, it looks like he might have used those smarts here for something not so good. All right, we will see. We've got a few more here. Again, touching on Richard Hart and some of the greed that he showed. And I think this is what sets apart Charles Hoskinson from some of these other founders. Again, not even just focusing on Richard Hart, but one thing I really appreciate about Charles is he's super in tune with the community, and he's always taken an educational approach with whatever it is that he does, right? He's never out here flashing his stuff, which he's obviously owns a lot of ADA, right? But he's not flaunting any of that. He's not, making anybody envious. If anything, he's trying to raise the entire community. So again, huge supporter here of what we already have within Cardano and why I'm a big proponent of this network. Cardano MM. I think that the SEC is meant to protect, or is meaning to protect, its retail investors. If a court case that they want to file hurts retail more than it helps, then it should not go ahead. I agree with you here wholeheartedly. Maybe they have the right intentions, but the way that they're going about executing or getting regulation may not be the best. And I think this is, warrants greater communication surrounding how do we regulate emerging markets. Crypto is just one of them, but we're going to see more emerging markets here aside from crypto. There's now been talk about AI and how Gary now wants to go and start being strict surrounding AI and AI protocols. So my thing is AI now going to face the same exact thing when it comes to overregulation and people just misunderstanding the entire space, just like we've seen with crypto and in securities, right? So I think we need to have a broader conversation just talking about how do we manage these emerging markets and how do we regulate them. Josh, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I mean this is the thing with like big government institutions. Is that like it's hard to tell what the perception is as an organization because it's composed of like a bunch of different people that have different biases and different opinions, different just perspectives, and it's difficult to tell that is supposed to be the intent of the organization. I don't always feel like that is the way that is executed. So it's I think kind of a moving target there, but it's supposed to be the function, and we should definitely be holding them to that function and apply that framework to what it is that they're doing and call them out when it doesn't meet that framework. That would be my thought.
Yeah, we definitely need a way to call them out moving forward. Another question here coming in from T. Vision. Any thoughts on Virtua? What are your thoughts on Virtua, Josh? I'll maybe give you the first shot and then I'll follow right behind you.
I'm optimistic. I think that a lot of the things that Virtua has been moving forward with is very fundamental for the kinds of things that we want to be seeing in a metaverse environment. I'm really anticipating them coming out with things. I'm subscribed to their email list and I'm constantly watching what they're doing. I like the direction that it's headed. All of my attention right now is in the realm of Cornucopias. I'm much more plugged in there and trying to develop things in that area. But But yeah, when Virtua comes along with something that I can engage with a little bit more, I will be right there.
Yeah, I believe they actually just released some themes, and they also released an interesting dashboard not too long ago. I know that they did attend. This was that CNFT Con? That was CNFT Con. It was Ash Mohammed who attended, but they are definitely one to keep an eye on. They do continue to build, right? I think maybe they need to up their marketing and maybe just up that community reach. They've had quite a few sales. I do own a few assets of theirs, but I've also been really kind of honing in on Cornucopias as, again, they've been introducing more and more gameplay to the community. So thank you for that, T. Vision. Appreciate you jumping on here and asking great questions. We'll take a few more and then we're going to close it out. I know that Josh has to go here, and I've also got to handle a few things here as well on my end. All right. So this is coming in from Vitaman. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly. I do see you commenting on a lot of my videos. I do appreciate you doing that. Are the both of you aware of the Rare Evo event? Speculation about FedEx using Cardano warranted. Number one, FedEx using Cardano, that would be impressive. I have not heard about that. I'll take a look at that here after this video. Josh, maybe you've heard something that I haven't. But then number two, with Rare Evo, I will be in attendance. I don't think Josh will be. However, I think Josh will be in attendance at CNFT Con taking place in Vegas. So Rare Evo will be taking place on August 24th through the 26th in Denver, Colorado, with I think over 50 or 60 of the top projects building on Cardano attendance. I'll definitely be there if you guys will be there as well. I'd love to meet up with you guys and shake your hands and potentially take some pictures. I'll also be doing some interviews there with some of the teams there in person as well. So Linkage Finance, the Indigo Protocol, the Cornucopias team, all of these are going to be teams that I'll be doing interviews with in person and uploading those to the channel as well. Josh, anything that you want to add about Rare Evo or about FedEx using Cardano?
I haven't heard this one yet. It's a fantastic idea. It would be pretty huge for the Cardano ecosystem, depending on what they intend on using it for. But yeah, that would be cool. As far as Rare Evo goes, it's definitely one that I am putting efforts into participating in, and I'll definitely be there next year. I think that's in the plan. And then CNFT Con or NFT LV, I'll be there for sure. I've already got plans for that one.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing you there. I think we're at the very end here, Josh. Again, I want to thank you for your time. We do have a question coming in from MMN. This is one that we received quite a bit last week. Thank you for reading, Josh. Is this going to be a regular thing moving forward? I am open to streaming, I believe, around this time, which will be every Saturday at around noon UTC or 6 o'clock p.m. Noon CST or about 6 p.m. UTC, which is the time that we streamed at today. I don't want to speak for Josh, but I do want to be clear with you guys that it is easier to live stream with somebody else here to help me do that. It takes a little bit of the pressure off of me, which is why I appreciate, having Josh on here. Last week we had Trim as well. But I also want to respect their time, right? They're obviously working on, their own personal lives outside of crypto. And then within crypto, I know Josh has had his hands pretty full here, not only within, his own content creation, but Meld, as well as Cornucopias and the Knights Guild as well. So Josh, I'd love to have you on here moving forward regularly. You know that this is always open for you to jump on anytime. I'm definitely going to be doing my part to do this more regularly, but keep in mind, guys, that doing an hour show by myself is a lot more work than doing an hour show with Josh. So if I do jump on by myself, it'll probably be a shorter show, maybe where I take more of the questions from the community. But Josh, what is live streaming like for you? And what are your thoughts about collaborating more often, not just with me, but with other content creators in the space moving forward?
As a part-time creator, it's been really difficult to try and manage all of that. And my hope is to really invest more time into the space. I've got a Catalyst proposal out right now that would really enable that to happen. And yeah, if that goes through, then I could easily be right here once a week. But we'll see what happens, the outcome of that. If not, I love being here. It's great conversations as always. Really contributes back to the community, and I could commit to something like once a month. So yeah, I'd love to be here.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And I definitely know that the comment section here is showing some love for you and what we're doing here. So, again, Josh, I want to thank you for your time as we are getting ready to close this down. Just really kind of cycling through some of this chat going on here. Again, I appreciate everybody tuning in. We'll definitely try to make this as steady for you guys as possible. Hopefully, you guys, found some value out of this, whether it was with respect to the SEC and Coinbase fighting their allegations, the Messari report, Wanchain, Cornucopias. Hopefully something here was informative and helpful for you guys. And if so, please definitely make sure to go ahead and tap that like button. If it's your first time stopping by the Dab Central YouTube channel, we would definitely appreciate it if you guys could tap the subscribe button here as well. If you guys have not checked out Josh's channel, definitely go ahead and do that. He uploads content weekly, just like I do, covering all the latest news surrounding stable coins, NFTs, and just the regular Cardano ecosystem. So check out the link down in the description. I do have a link to his channel. Go ahead and subscribe for more content of his on his platform as well. Again, so many generous comments here really pouring through here at the very end of the stream. We've got one coming in from David. Yeah, I mean, anything you want to say to David? I know that he's been a huge supporter here for my channel as well.
He has been. I don't advertise my my Saturday live streams that I play with Trim and Matt every week over on my channel. We play games and we just talk crypto the whole time. And David has been there like every single week. He consists of at least 30% of my viewership. So thank you for being there. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, amazing person here. Stand-up person for Cardano. He's building his own indie game. And yeah, it just takes a lot of time, and seeing him hustle, right, to do that has been impressive for me here. All right, guys, we are going to shut it down. This is it. Again, Josh, thank you so much for your time. Everybody tuning in, we appreciate you guys doing that as well, giving us a piece of your time here on this wonderful weekend. We will definitely be keeping you guys posted as we begin to normalize this here. And as always, we thank you, and we will see you guys in the next video.